Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. This meeting may be streamed live as well and recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel. Council, we begin this gathering by acknowledging that the land upon which we meet is the traditional territory of First Nations people. We convey our respect and our thanks to them for their contribution to our culture, community, and our past and future partnerships. Council, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Yes, Mike Scholdice. Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I've put the paperwork into the office earlier, and it's for Section 4A Code of Conduct Complaint, Integrity Commissioner Report.
Okay, thank you, Michael, very much for that. Seeing none other, we'll move on to item 3 on the agenda. The agenda has been prepared. You had time to read it, Council. Are there any errors or additions? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion that the agenda dated December 15th be accepted as presented. May I have a mover? Councillor Bartlett. Seconder. Councillor Scholdice. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Delegations and presentations. We have the IC report before us tonight. Council, just before we begin, I just want to give you some background to let you know what roles and responsibilities we have before us during the IC report. Councillor Scholdice, you may speak on the recommendations contained in the report from the Integrity Commissioner, and you may participate in the discussions related to the recommendations. But Councillor Scholdice, you cannot vote on the matter, and as you have declared conflict of interest. You have been provided an opportunity, Councillor Scholdice has been provided the opportunity to respond to the IC's findings and comment on the final draft report. But that part of the process is over. The investigation is over, so it is only the recommendation that Council is dealing with at this meeting. I suspect that the IC will be looking for your assistance in being firm on that point of the discussion with Council. It is not intended in any way to reopen the investigation or ask questions about it. That portion is complete and final. The only thing to be discussed, and that is before Council, are the recommendations. I expect John will be clear on that as well, but it will likely help you to know how the ground rules are laid out. I would certainly like to welcome John Muscarin from Airs Bearless this evening. Airs Bearless serves as the municipality's Integrity Commissioner, Municipal Ombudsman, and Meeting Investigator. Tonight, Mr. Muscarin is fulfilling his duty as the Integrity Commissioner, and he has reported his findings onto a complaint he received related to a contravention of the Council's Code of Conduct by a member of our Council. Council, to lay the framework before you for the discussion, the municipality is responsible for ensuring the reports of the Integrity Commissioner are made available to the public. This has been fulfilled. When the Integrity Commissioner reports that, in their opinion, a member has contravened a code of conduct, part of the Integrity Commissioner's responsibility is to make recommendations related to the penalties for Council's consideration. Mr. Muscarin has included his recommendation in his report. He will propose and present those to Council. As outlined in the report, there are only 2 options available for Council to consider, and the Integrity Commissioner has made their recommendations. That is all we have before us tonight for discussion and a decision. The councillor who has been found to have breached the Code of Conduct has the ability to make submissions to Council on the recommendations in the Integrity Commissioner's report. But as I understand the process, he cannot vote. So as directed by the legislation, we are here to talk about the we are not here to talk about the investigation process. That portion is complete Mr. Mascaron, while all members of council will have read your report, we thank you for your company, and we would be pleased if you could introduce yourself and provide us with an overview of the complaint and your investigation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew, and good evening, Council. Thank you for having me here this evening. I lead all of our accountability mandates at the office at Aird & Burles. We were the successful proponent on your RFP for the services that you outlined, Your Worship, which is the Integrity Commissioner, which is the reason I'm here tonight, closed meeting investigator, and municipal ombudsman. In fact, we were appointed 1 year ago, last year, 1 year ago tomorrow. So this is first anniversary. I've met a number of you already. My face must be new to a number of other members of council. I'm here this evening, and I thank you very much, Your Worship, for setting out, as you said, the ground rules. That's very courteous and responsible of you. I must say, in many municipalities I go in, and it's a free-for-all. There are no rules, and it's very disconcerting because everything that we do is done under a duty of confidentiality, and council members often would like to ask questions. Why did you interview this person? Why didn't you interview that person? Why did you look at this? Why didn't you look at that? And that's very problematic because what's in the report is what we've deemed appropriate to disclose to the public. Everything else remains confidential, and it makes it very difficult. So I do appreciate your comments, Mr. Mayor. What is before council tonight for receipt is my investigation report on the complaint that was filed against Ward 3 Councillor Mike Scholdice. It was received by our office, and I took it upon myself to look into it. I did not give it to anyone else in my office. My associates and one of my partners are also investigators, and they often assist, but I've never been before you, and I took this opportunity to look at it and to come before you with this report. The complaint alleged that Councillor Scholdice divulged confidential information by virtue of a statement that he made at a council meeting on October the 13th. This is the first complaint that my office has investigated and that we've looked at. I know your former Integrity Commissioner looked at a couple of complaints and reported on them. The complaint alleges that the councillor breached confidentiality under Section 10(2) of the Code of Conduct, and that's laid out on page 1 of the report. You'll see it there. The allegation is that the councillor had previously been provided with information that was provided on a confidential basis to all members of council and was advised by the CAO clerk not to disclose that information to anyone. The statement was clear, it was express, it was explicit. And the allegation was that Councillor Scholdice did divulge the confidential information at the meeting on October the 13th. It all related to questions that the councillor had about 2 vouchers, which coincidentally involved services that my firm provided as Integrity Commissioner and as closed meeting investigator to the municipality. Those vouchers, the information in those invoices were marked confidential. Our engagement with the municipality notes that all of the information that we provide is strictly confidential. Councillor Scholdice had requested some information, and the treasurer, in an attempt to satisfy the questions, did provide him with information that admittedly she ought not to have disclosed. The CAO, upon discovering this, indicated to all members of council that the information was strictly confidential and was not to be disclosed. At the meeting, however, the councillor made a statement. He was able to take the information that had been provided to him by the treasurer and extrapolate from certain facts that he was aware of and made a statement which is outlined on page 3 of the report. It was immediately called a breach of confidentiality by the mayor. The deputy mayor stated that it was an uncalled for breach of confidentiality. That is what we were asked to look into. We reviewed the definition of confidential information just a little bit lower on the page, and it's a definition that is provided by a non-exclusive list of what can be confidential information. And you'll see the final sentence there says confidential information includes items disclosed or discussed at closed sessions of council and committee meetings. And this was that type of information. In accordance with our requirements as an integrity commissioner, we act with due account of procedural fairness. We provided a written notice to the councillor, set out the full allegation in its complete form, and provided him with our notice that it was our preliminary finding that it appeared that he did disclose confidential information. We provided him with, I believe it was 10 days in which to provide a response. Upon not hearing from the counselor, we wrote to him and he indicated that he had had some difficulties with his internet and requested some additional time. Truly, we had no difficulty with that. We provided the member with some additional period of time in which he indicated he wanted to prepare his statement and consult with a lawyer. We have no issue with that at all and provided him with additional time. Councillor Scholdice was courteous and did reply within the allotted time frame and indicated that he had consulted with the lawyer. His submissions are set out on page 4 of our report. You'll see them all there. And then our findings are set out at the bottom of page 4. Begin there. In our view, very clearly, Councillor Scholdice did divulge confidential information, information that had been provided to him on a strictly your eyes only, Councillor. You are not to provide this information to anyone, and he did provide that. You'll see that we addressed each of the council members' submissions, and those are set out on page 5. We carefully considered his submissions, and we addressed them all there. Interestingly enough, Councillor Scholdice had a conversation or exchange of information with the CAO clerk where he said, why can't I get this information? It was paid for by taxpayer dollars. That information should be made available. And the simple answer is, and the clerk, the CAO clerk provided him with this information, which is the integrity commissioner is entitled to provide a written response, written advisement to any member of council should they ask for that information or advisement as to their ethical responsibilities. Council member did reach out to us, and we are entitled to respond. That's a change in the Municipal Act that integrity commissioners are expressly entitled to do that. However, that information is confidential and remains so because of a particular section of the Municipal Act, section 223.5. It says everything that comes within the integrity commissioner's knowledge in undertaking his or her responsibilities is confidential. There is a provision that says a member may release the information that's been provided to them. But until that happens, that information is confidential. The CAO clerk reached out to us and asked us the question. We responded, and she actually responded back to Councillor Scholdice. So my view is he had this information and yet decided to make the statement at the meeting on October the 13th. We provided a final draft of this report to Councillor Scholdice. We gave him an opportunity to make any final submissions on the report, sans the recommendations, and he did. He provided them within the time frame. He essentially reiterated his earlier statements, felt that as a council member who is all for transparency and accountability, he simply does not understand why that information is confidential. It should be shared with the residents. And my answer to that is the same answer I gave to the CAO, and it's set out in the report. The answer is it's because there is a statutory duty of confidentiality. A council member is entitled to release it, but does not have to release it. And quite honestly, Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's the only way that the system will work. Council members have to be full and frank in telling me all the relevant details of a matter in order for me to be able to give the proper advice. If they don't, I can't. But some of that information may be sensitive. It may be very germane to something that they're doing that they don't want to share with anyone else. And the Municipal Act recognizes this. So it puts it under a shroud of secrecy. And that's the answer to this. So the response was provided by Councillor Scholdice. It was considered, and I have written my report. My conclusions are that, in my view, it is clear that Councillor Scholdice did breach the duty of confidentiality in the statement that he made. My view is, quite honestly, he ought to have known better. There was an earlier report from the Integrity Commissioner, and admittedly not against Councillor Scholdice. It was a report against another member of council. And the Integrity Commissioner pointed out the very same section that we're talking about and said that it is important to read the code, understand the code, and not to disclose confidential information. There was also an earlier report and an investigation against Councillor Scholdice, not on the matters of confidential information, but on another matter. And there was a finding from the former Integrity Commissioner that Councillor Scholdice did breach the Code of Conduct, and that report was accepted by Council. And I point that out, and Councillor Scholdice asked me why that was germane to this report. And it's germane because your own code asks the council to bear in mind any prior findings of contravention. So it was incumbent upon me to point that out. So taking all that into account, Mr. Mayor, and knowing that I am a completely neutral, impartial third-party investigator, it is my finding that Councillor Scholdice has breached the Code of Conduct by divulging confidential information under Section 10.2, and that the Municipal Act and your code sets out two possible penalties. I've taken into account that this is Councillor Scholdice's second contravention of the Code of Conduct in this term, and I believe that the disclosure of confidential information is probably one of the most egregious of the breaches that can occur in a code of conduct. In fact, it's one of only 4 mandated prescribed provisions that every code of conduct in the province must have. Confidential information is one subject matter that has to be in a code. So even the province has elevated its status. So therefore, it's my recommendation to you that Councillor Scholdice should receive a reprimand from council denouncing his actions, and that his pay be suspended for 10 days. Those are my recommendations. Those are only recommendations, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I'm only in a recommendatory advisory capacity. It is your decision to make. You can accept my recommendations. You can modify my recommendations. You can reject them outright. It is your decision to make. That's the conclusion of my reporting or my presentation this evening, Mr. Mayor. I'd be pleased to take any questions as to the recommendations. Again, this is not an opportunity to reopen the case or the investigation. To do so would really undermine the whole investigation process, which has provided procedural fairness to the council member and a full opportunity to respond, and to the complainant to reply to the council member's response. It would be completely unfair to the complainant, who cannot make any statements on the matter at the council meeting, to seek to reopen any portion of the investigation. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that report. Council, as the prelude to this conversation began, we are focusing on the recommendation. And I should also, when I say council, Councillor Scholdice, you can question the recommendation as well. But the investigation is done, it's finished, it's complete, and it's been presented to council. Council, the chair will entertain questions. Please raise your hand and direct them through the chair to Mr. Mascarin. Are there any? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead. And I remind you that we are dealing with the recommendation.
Yes, I just wanted to be sure if I could ask John this. When your bill comes the next time to the vouchers, can we say that this was a meeting investigation bill?
Thank you, Councillor Vink. Yes, John.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Vink. Yes, it will identify. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the invoices probably may include some other matters that we've been dealing with for the municipality. But yes, and there'll be a breakdown. You can certainly get to the global amounts of any investigation, and I don't think that there's anything inappropriate with that. In fact, I agree that there should be full accountability for you to know what the cost of the services are. So I don't think there's any problem with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, again, any questions to John through the chair? Seeing none, the chair is looking for an action from council on this. Is there any motions coming forward? Yes, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, just wondered when I could make a statement, Mayor Mayhew.
Yes, I invited you to make a statement when I included you with council, Mike, but go ahead. Yes.
Okay.
As long as it's not pertaining to the investigation, and again, your statement should be in reference to the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I won't prolong this discussion given the amount of business we're facing on tonight's agenda. It's nice to put a face and even a voice to Mr. Mascarin, having only been in contact via email. To be completely transparent, I contacted the CAO clerk earlier in the week inquiring whether Aird Bayless should be involved in this investigation. It was brought to my attention that the firm may have a conflict of interest, having already received over $2,500 in payment for advising Councillor Cowell about the potential conflict of interest directly related to this complaint. Jill suggested that I contact the Ontario.
It has got to do with the recommendation. You can make this in a statement to our CAO and to John. But Mike, Councillor Scholdice, we are talking about the recommendation. The invitation for you to speak was to speak to the recommendation. There is a process that you can convey these thoughts to our administration and through to Mr. Mascarin. Again, are you going to speak to the recommendation?
Am I not allowed to defend myself to council, Mayor Mayhew?
You can defend yourself to the Integrity Commissioner, and I will ask for clarification from John and Jill on that. John, what's your point on that? I know the parameters are fairly tight, and we don't do this every day, so I appreciate your input on this.
Yes.
I sense some hostility here, and I didn't want it to morph into that.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Scholdice, he is certainly entitled to make a statement. The statement should be to the recommendations. Councillor Scholdice has brought up the issue of conflict of interest with me. So if I can just address that, Mr. Mayor, he raised this. He said his lawyer asked him to raise this with me. I responded to that. It's very clear under the scheme of the Act that the Integrity Commissioner is actually mandated to give advice when requested. There is no conflict of interest in then looking at a matter that then comes forward that may somehow relate to the advice that was given. Otherwise, the Integrity Commissioner would be booted out of every second thing that may happen, because a council member could ask for advice on something and yet be under an investigation. So the statutory scheme that is set out under 5.1 of the Municipal Act, which I have explained to Councillor Scholdice, actually envisages two basic services that the Integrity Commissioner provides. One is to give advice. The second is to do the enforcement. I'm here tonight to do the enforcement. I had earlier given the advice. The fact that the two things may have somehow been tangentially related does not put me in a conflict of interest at all. However, should Councillor Scholdice disagree with that, there is an ability for him to file a complaint with the Ontario Ombudsman, who has oversight over integrity commissioners, and he can get the answer from them. He could also file a judicial review application in the courts, and I will defend it.
Okay, thank you. There's been some substantial work from the chair and to research this, and the opening remarks clearly indicated that we're talking that if there's any question from council, it has to deal with the recommendations. And not only did I make it clear, John made that clear as well. So let's focus on the recommendation. All right, and Councillor Vink first, and Councillor Scholdice, I'll come back to you.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Allen. I'd like to make a motion to file and receive the report. And when we vote on any motion, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Chair will call that again. Is there a seconder for that motion? Doug, I saw your hand come up. Were you just playing with your screen, or did it? You didn't second that, eh? No, you're on mute.
Sorry, I got kicked out, Mayor. I just got back in.
Okay, okay. So you were not addressing the chair then, okay?
No.
No problem. The motion does not stand. It does not stand. Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. I'm sorry, Councillor Scholdice first, and Deputy Mayor, you're next. Yes.
I'm just looking. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm just looking for clarification whether I'm allowed to make a statement about the report that's being presented tonight.
You can make a statement about the recommendation.
I wasn't informed of that in advance, that it was just to do with the recommendation. It's council that is making this decision, not the Integrity Commissioner, and I feel that I should be able to speak directly to his report.
And Councillor Scholdice, council are making a decision on the recommendation. We're not making a decision on the report. We're making a decision on the recommendation, whether to accept the recommendation, reject it, or modify it. That is what council are doing tonight. The report is done. If you don't agree with the report and want to make a statement on it, there is a process you can take. But it according to the Municipal Act and the legislation and the before us, we're following proper procedural. We're not depriving you of anything. If you want to make a statement about the penalty that has been imposed on you, you can, but the report itself is done. It's history. If you want to make a statement on that, you will have to go through, as was indicated, the Ombudsman, or seek litigation, legal action. And a follow-up question, Councillor Scholdice, no problem.
Could I have clarification, please, Mr. Mayor, from the Integrity Commissioner, whether I'm allowed to comment on his report or not?
I think it was given, but I'll let him do it again. Mr. Muscarin, could you address Councillor Scholdice directly on his privilege of addressing the report itself?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wrote to Councillor Scholdice yesterday, and I'm just going to read the statement because I think There's some misinformation that's just been provided to you. I wrote, Councillor Scholdice, as you are aware, our report with respect to the above noted complaint investigation is on the agenda for tomorrow evening's council meeting, item 4A. So that there is no confusion, you are entitled to be present for the report and you are entitled to make submissions to council on the recommendations contained in the report and to participate in the discussion. You are not entitled to vote on the matter. And I quote from section 5 sub 2.1 of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, where this is allowed. So I'm sorry, I really have to dispute the fact that I did not tell Councillor Scholdice that he could speak to the recommendations. That's what my statement actually says.
Okay, so the chair is going to rule that we're not trying to deprive you of anything, Councillor Scholdice. There is a process that we do not create, but we have to follow. And it's been stated prior to the report being given, during the report, and in conclusion of the report it's been given. And we have to, the chair has an obligation to follow the constituted law. It has to. Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. I will make a motion that we reprimand and a suspension of remuneration paid to the council member for a period of 30 days.
That's different than the recommendation. You realize that, correct?
I also know it can be changed, Mayor Mayhew.
Okay, all right. It's different than the recommendation. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Okay, seconded by Councillor McGill. Okay, discussion, council. Yes, Councillor Cal first, and followed by Councillor Vink.
We have been here before for a similar topic, and we have been here before for a similar person. In this situation, he's neither contrite nor is he remorseful. His actions could be described as intentional, and as the Integrity Commissioner said, he should have known better, and at this point, he should know his role. With that in mind, I will be supporting this motion.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? I'll get my hands. Councillor Vink was first, followed by Councillor McGill, followed by Deputy Mayor Wilkins, followed by Councillor Scholdice. Councillor Vink, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Just wanted to make sure that we get a recorded vote. And also, as a ratepayer and a person around the table through these 3 years, I feel Councillor Scholdice is the most valuable person on council. He is always on Facebook telling people what's going on, what the current events are. And all I can say is, what a Christmas present to Councillor Scholdice.
Okay. All right, that's a comment. Councillor McGill, followed by Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. This is a decision of council. I know the last time we had a recommendation brought to council about, I believe it was about 2 councillors at the same meeting. And there was a recommendation of a suspension of pay. And at the time I thought, why can't we just all get along? And I didn't support the recommendation of the Integrity Commissioner. I believe at least the one councillor apologized for his actions. And then we kind of moved on, and I'm looking back at it, I maybe made a mistake because there should be consequences to people's actions, I believe. And it's just kind of embarrassing to council that these kind of things keep happening. It would have been nice to have seen an acknowledgement of wrongdoing and maybe even an apology too. And we did not see that. That's all I'd like to say.
Okay, Deputy Mayor, followed by Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. From the start of this term, the one thing I have said more than I've ever said in my 20 years on Southwest Middlesex Council is that the best thing we as councillors can do for ourselves as members of council, as well as members of the community, is to know our role and know it well. And I agree with everything that Councillor McGill has said here tonight. So I wish maybe something had happened prior, but unfortunately, here we are again. And I think if every councillor took their position seriously and knew their role, we'd be in a much better position. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you. Councillor Scholz, go ahead.
Point of order. Is he allowed to speak on this if he has a conflict of interest?
Yes, I am.
Yes, he is. That's been sanctioned, and John is he cannot vote on it, Councillor Cal, but he can speak to the recommendation. Yes, if you're speaking to the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. The Integrity Commissioner has falsely stated that there was a prior non-conformance that was proven. Am I allowed to speak to that?
This is not the recommendation, Mike. It's not.
The recommendation is also based on a prior non-compliance that is not accurate.
I'll get some advice on that. Jill or John, you'll have to give me some guidance on this. Or allow the councillor to speak if you so wish.
Mr. Mayor, I can answer that. I looked into it. Councillor Scholz did say that the earlier report was only, accepted by council. There was no formal penalty put. It doesn't take away from the fact that the Integrity Commissioner actually found a contravention.
Yes.
That was the finding. I checked the record. I actually confirmed this with the CAO clerk. I asked her if she had any information, if there was a recording of the meeting. There wasn't. She pulled the information from me. It bore out what I saw in the minutes. There was a 6-2 vote. That council accepted the report, and the report had a finding of a contravention. So I'm at a loss to understand how there wasn't a finding of a contravention.
There was not a monetary penalty, but there was a contravention. Mike, can you speak to the recommendation? This is your last question.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. There is, in fact, a recording of that meeting that proves that it was not a prior non-compliance. As Mr. Mascarin has stated, there is a recording of the meeting.
That's something that you can take another channel and pursue. Mike, I believe we're talking about the recommendation for breach of conduct, and that is what we have to focus on. Councillor Vink, the chair will take your question if it is in regard to the recommendation as brought down by the Integrity Commissioner. If it's not, don't ask it.
Well, it's to do with the minutes. And it's already been stated, Mayor Allen, so I feel I have the minutes in front of me, exactly what it says. And it was on the February 20th meeting, and it says that the report dated January 27, 2019, from the Integrity Commissioner related to Councillor Scholz being received and filed. There's no admission of guilt, just to be received and filed. We've done that with lots of reports. And that doesn't mean that there's any guilt found.
That statement does not constitute the whole report of the Integrity Commissioner, Martin. It's just a recommendation to council. The report in itself found the councillor guilty of a violation. There was no monetary penalty, but that is how the chair perceives it. If I'm wrong, if I need clarification in that, I'm sure the CAO will step in. Jill, any comment on that? I think that's paraphrasing it incorrectly, I believe.
I agree, Mayor Mayhew, with the comments you've made in your summary.
All right, thank you. So, Council, there's a motion before. Yes, Councillor McGill.
Yeah, I'd just like to dispute. I I was there at that meeting too. I was one of the 6 that voted just to receive and file it. But that doesn't change the fact that the integrity commissioner that found at the time ruled against those 2 individuals.
Yeah.
And then council, we had our reasons, we decided not to impose any penalty.
Mhm.
We just voted to receive and file. But that doesn't change the fact that those 2 councillors were found in contravention of the code of conduct.
Mhm.
So I hope these 2 councillors aren't just getting themselves in more trouble by trying to insinuate that's not what happened.
Mhm. Okay, well, it's been clearly stated by the chair and members of administration, our IC, our integrity commissioner, and the chair has reiterated that several times to this council. No more questions. I'll call the vote. We are deviating, and just so council understands, if anyone needs the motion reread, the recommendation has been changed from a period of loss of income from 10 days to 30 days and everything else intact. Okay, everyone has an understanding of that? I'll call the motion. All in favor, please raise your hand.
No, recorded vote.
Recorded vote. Okay, Jill, go ahead. Yep, thanks. Councilor McGill for reminding me of that.
Okay, so we start with the council member who requested the recorded vote, and I believe that was Councillor Vink. So
Yes.
Councillor Vink,
No.
Councillor Bartlett,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wilkins,
Yes.
Mayor Mayhew,
No.
Councillor McGill,
Yes,
Councillor Choi,
Yes.
and Councillor Cowell,
Yes.
and the motion carries.
Thank you. Well, thank you, John, very much. I'm sure you put a great deal of thought into your report and your recommendation, and we thank you for that. And I'm going to fall short of saying I hope we see you soon again, but please do not take that as in a detrimental manner. We are glad that you're on our team and keeping us on the straight and narrow. And thank you very much once again on behalf of all the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and I wish you all happy holidays. Thank you.
Okay. Council, the consent agenda is before us. I'll read these, and should any member of council want any of these pulled out, please don't hesitate to raise your hand. We'll move them to number 12 on our agenda. We're on 5A, consent agenda. 5A, December 8th, 2021 draft budget meeting. Are there any errors or additions? Okay. Middlesex County Economic Development, Tourism and Department Update 2021. That's 5B. 5C, Fire Committee meeting, Brook Alveston, August 31st, 2021 minutes. 5D, St. Catherine's Resolution, Premier Notification, National Child Care Program. Yes, Councillor Cowell, would you like that moved?
Yes, please, for us to support later on.
Yes, thank you. That's a good idea. Okay. And that is childcare. I'll just make a note of that, council. And Middlesex London Board of Health meeting update November 18th. .5F, St. Clair Region Conservation Authority Board appointment 2022. And 5G, the Glencoe Animal Shelter Report 2021. Yes, Councillor Cowell.
I don't want to pull it out, but I just wanted to comment on it. It was probably one of my favorite reports to read in 2021. And I loved hearing the stories about the dogs and how some of them were rehomed and how well they're doing and the good work that they do at the shelter. I especially loved hearing the story of, I can't remember his name, but he was a big Mastiff-like puppy dog and how healthy he'd gotten. So just want to say it made me feel real good.
That's good. Yeah, it is a good news story. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Council, we will, can I have a recommendation to adopt the consent agenda with the exclusion of 5D regarding childcare? Someone move that, please. Councillor Bartlett, seconded by Councillor Cowell. Questions? All in favor? Carried, and we'll look after 5D down the road. Committee of Adjustment, there are none. Public meetings, there are none. Staff reports, at the time of review, there were none. Oh, no, public meetings, there's none. Staff reports, no fire. 8A and 5B, we're going to have Stephanie walk us through this regarding a request to submit a minor variance application on 6460 River Road. I remind council that this has to do with Arrowwood Farms, owned by the Modals there, and we'll let Stephanie walk us through that.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to seek a resolution by council to exempt the use of section 45, subsection 1.3 of the Planning Act to permit a future minor variance application to be made by the owners of the subject lands known municipally as 6460 Riverside Drive, or better known as Arrowwood Farms. So just for reference, section 45 1.3 of the Planning Act states that, subject to subsection 1.4, that no person shall apply for a minor variance from the provisions of the bylaw in respect of the land, buildings, or structures before the second anniversary of the day in which the bylaw was amended. And the purpose of this section is to discourage landowners from receiving zoning approvals on lands and then immediately seeking further amendments from those approvals. And through a further refinement of the pavilion structure design and the desire for outdoor washrooms, it was determined that a minor variance would be required to permit and increase the maximum ground floor area of the pavilion from 3,000 square feet to 3,500 square feet. In this instance, planning staff do not raise any concerns to council in allowing the applicant, my apologies, to apply for a minor variance within the 2-year prohibited time frame, as the future development of the site is subject to site plan approval process and subsequently a site plan agreement. And furthermore, the additional floor area for the pavilion will not further increase the event venue's capacity or the maximum permitted number of seats. So it is recommended that council resolve that section 45 1.4 of the Planning Act does apply for a minor variance application made before the second anniversary of the date on which the bylaw was amended. And as a result, the applicant be permitted to apply for a minor variance for a lot known municipally as 6460 Riverside Drive. Thank you.
So I'm not sure if we've lost the mayor momentarily. Maybe the deputy mayor, would you be willing to step in for a moment to chair until he resumes?
Absolutely, I can, Jill. Are there any questions or comments on this report? Seeing none, we have a recommendation before us. Councillor Cowell, are you moving the recommendation?
Yes.
Moved by Counselor Cowell, seconded by Counselor McGill. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Just bear with me a second. I'm on a new Mac laptop and
Yeah.
yeah, I'll
It's the-
get back into it.
Yeah, no problem. It's the Glen Meadows subdivision development agreement.
Right. Okay. So let me see here. It's not letting me move on that, Jill, but I have it in front of me. It's yeah, here we go. So 8B, number 2, the Glen Meadows subdivision agreement, development agreement. Stephanie?
Actually, that will be me, but I know Stephanie wants
Oh,
to stick
okay.
around because she's excited.
I haven't got my details up here yet,
That's okay.
Jill. So just a second here.
Mhm.
I will in a second. Okay, Jill,
So
the floor is yours.
yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. So the council has seen this, and we got close before, and then we had to pull it back. But we have got this sorted from the perspective of the developer, and the municipality has been able to accept their new proposal, and essentially that just takes a look at the development, and because initially there needed to be an additional agreement between another property owner within that area, and ultimately that didn't come to fruition. So the development agreement between the municipality and the developer has been tweaked, and we've accepted that, and we're happy to bring this forward to council tonight and recommend its approval. And I do see that the mayor is back, just FYI.
Okay, I'll hand it back to the mayor.
Oh, and he's on mute. So me, looks like. Maybe Deputy Mayor for just another few moments till it looks like
Yeah.
he gets himself settled.
Yeah, absolutely. I will continue on. Are there any questions on this report? Not seeing any. We have a recommendation in front of us, and quite frankly, I'm glad that we're at this stage with this. So that's positive. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this report, please? Moved by Councillor McGill, seconded by Councillor Bartlett. Discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried. Do you want me to continue?
Maybe it looks like it.
Okay. That worked better. So we have site plan agreement, 8.3. And this one, Jill, are you the lead on this one again, or Stephanie?
I am.
Okay, you've got the floor.
Okay, so this is close by to the other development, but it's a site plan development. So council has seen presentations with respect to this proposal. And because this deals with all one site, it's a site plan agreement as opposed to a subdivision agreement. And we are satisfied with the site plan submissions and are recommending that council approve the agreement and execute that with directing myself and the mayor, as well as authorizing that by bylaw. So this is the one that's across the street from No Frills. You'll recall it from a severance, and then proposal and some planning work that definitely Stephanie did help to present and prepare and put before both the committee and council, and we're in the final stage on our end.
Thank you to you both for doing, I know, a lot of hard work on this as well. Are there any questions or comments from council on this? Seeing none, there's a recommendation. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Counselor Vink, seconded by Counselor Choi. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Want me to still go on, Jill?
I just wanted to say bye,
Oh.
everybody. Have a good holiday. Sorry.
Bye, Stephanie. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Enjoy your
Christmas.
holiday.
Watch another Grinch movie.
I will. Good night.
Good night.
Bye, Stephanie. Have a good holiday. We have the building report.
Mhm.
Are there any questions or comments on this report? Jill, is there anything that you wanted to speak to on this?
No, we could have put this in the consent agenda because on a quarterly basis, the CBO is able to attend our meetings and take questions. This is more of the monthly update, but we've got it here just for your acceptance. But if you have any questions, by all means, we can take that back.
Okay, I did see Councillor Cowell's hand up.
I was just going to move that we file the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cowell. Can I get a seconder for this? Seconded by Councillor McGill. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. We have report arena renovation project, ICP community culture and recreation stream rehabilitation and renovation intake. Greg, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, sure. And through you, Deputy Mayor, I will kind of just go through the report. I know there has been questions with regards to the project and the current status. So I have provided this information and I will quickly just go through it, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So really what I'm trying to do today is just give us sort of a snapshot of where we came from and where we are today with regards to the arena project. The municipality is the lead applicant and was in submitting an application under the ICIP Community and Culture and Recreation Stream rehab and renovation intake in 2019. The Glencoe Curling Club and with the Glencoe Ag Society signed on as a partner for the project. The application was accepted and approved by the province and the federal governments, resulting in the municipality executing a transfer payment agreement with both levels of government in 2021. The scope that was accepted in the TPA agreement included the following improvements. To replace the refrigerated concrete floor in the arena and the curling club, to replace, upgrade other components of the arena's mechanical and refrigeration system, to renovate the arena in various ways to meet and exceed AODA requirements, and to replace other components at the end of their life cycle at the arena. Electrical panel, condenser fans, stop starters, compressors. And there was a direction in there to try to change from a water-based cooling or water-based refrigerant to a glycol-cooled refrigerant, including the cooling of compressor heads with glycol. There was also to improve the arena accessibility with some new washrooms, dressing rooms, and the new sound system, a cafeteria counter, railings, roof railings. The financials associated for the original scope were provided within the original application that was submitted to the province and federal governments and that was approved. And just to give some clarification on those numbers in 2019, when we submitted the application, were sourced from the private market. So we did get quotes and supporting documentation to move forward with the application. The next step in the process was to secure engineering services to move the project forward. An RFP was created by the operations department, and the municipality entertained 5 submissions as part of the RFP. And a report was presented to council recommending Cornerstone Architectural as a successful company. Council approved that recommendation. As part of the original review, because Cornerstone did send engineers into both facilities to have a look at those facilities just based on the application scope, They looked at the floor at the curling club. They looked at the floor at the Glencoe Arena, including the header trench, all the compressor room and mechanical systems, including compressors, chillers, electrical control panels, pumps, brine operation versus glycol, all their HVAC systems, current floor plan, AODA requirements, and the concessions, both upstairs and downstairs and in the upstairs hall. As part of this process, Cornerstone did provide estimates based on their review in the original scope. When we saw these estimates, of course, these numbers were much higher than the numbers that were submitted as part of the application. There's a number of reasons for that, and some of that's open to interpretation, but there's a whole lot of factors involved in that. In regards to the Glencoe Curling Club and the Glencoe Egg Society decision not to proceed, the municipality met with the Glencoe Curling Club and Egg Society to determine how they would proceed based on those new numbers or those estimates. The CAO and the mayor spent much time trying to assist to move this project forward, including, contact with local MPs, etc. And ultimately, the Glencoe Curling Club and the Egg Society decided that they would not be proceeding with the work, replacement of the floor as part of the approved project. I will note that that only scope issue contained in the application for the curling club was just the replacement of their cement floor and associated piping. At that particular point, once that decision was made, the municipality notified the province and federal governments with regards to our application to get a scope change. That included removing the curling club from the scope, as well as the removal of glycol as the main refrigerant moving forward for the arena. Now, as part of the review of the buildings, etc., there's several items, there are many items that kind of came to be simply because they're either driven by legislation or they would be a requirement to fulfill the building code. So an example of that would be the installation of a new fire sprinkler system. We're not going to be able to get the work done in the building unless we have one of them. So that was these additions, basically all of them were generated through either legislation or requirements under the building code. There were the installation of new flooring tile, which is skate tile, which was an addition, and the conversion of the concession to a vending machine area was part of the discussions as well. The main thrust on that one was that vending machines do produce revenue for the municipality, and there are the major improvements that would have to be done to the concession. We're just going to balloon that area as part of the project, but that was something that was discussed heavily and is included as an additional scope issue. There was some information provided as well with regards to dehumidification because we want to use the building year round, and that's a key component to doing that. And then, of course, part of the scope discussions or additional scopes always has been that the residents need to see, some improvements other than, replacing a compressor. So cosmetic improvements were certainly talked about. So we've had the current estimates we have do incorporate all those in there, and we are now getting an independent review and getting further estimates from a third party because those original estimates were just done by Cornerstone. Cornerstone is currently working on the complete drawing set, and we will share that information once we get those. Next steps, once we receive permission to proceed from the province and the federal governments, then we will get this on the market. And I'm hoping that our timeline still can be maintained, which was to have construction begin there in mid-March and be completed by fair time in September. So we're hoping we can still meet that timeline for the project. I will talk a little bit about just the numbers itself, which I have provided the original numbers that have gone into the project, and who the contributors were. The market estimates as provided by Cornerstone, then I have broken those down as well. And I will caution everyone when we talk about estimates, they're only estimates. They're nothing etched in stone. And it's very much an unknown at this particular point how the market will respond to projects like this, especially in the COVID environment. And And, in the regional market, we just don't know those. There are some areas of movement within even the estimates that were provided, because in most cases, these type of estimates are inflated on the high side. And, there are areas where you look at HST on construction. I mean, that particular total there is not what we would pay in HST, but that was provided as from the consultant, and those numbers were moved forward. Now, I just make a quick comment with regards to the scope, because the scope itself will support, the original scope that we applied for and which was approved. That will support the grant that we would receive, which is, $1.8 million for these improvements. But there will be items that sit outside that scope itself that will have to be covered by the, just by the input into the budget itself. So an example of that would be the lift device, which was never included in the scope, but right now it's not functioning properly and needs to be replaced. And then the easy way to do this is to have it part of this particular project. We will get some efficiencies in that, but that's something that just needs to be replaced. Certainly the conversion of the concession to vending machines, there will be savings, and we wouldn't be doing the concession work. And certainly, outside stormwater control, because the pad itself does have a drainage system underneath it, and we need to make sure that that particular stormwater control system, not just inside the building but outside the building, is working properly. My last comment with regards to this is the project is with regards to asset management. So if I look at our the arena and look at the aging systems that we have, the floor needs to be replaced. I mean, the floor is leaking in several spots. We've got that under control for this year, but it can't continue that way. If you look at the electrical system in the original scope was to do major upgrades of electrical in the mechanical room, but the mechanical room is fed by an electrical room right next door, and that particular infrastructure that's in that room is 50 years old. So it's not, that has to be upgraded. We couldn't even get a permit to do the work in the mechanical room without doing those upgrades in that other area. So we will look at all those major systems, and we will be fixing all those major systems, which would include HVAC. It would include dehumidification, electrical, plumbing, ice mechanical, floor, headers, and piping. These are all things that are contained in our asset management plan. This particular project with that grant money will extend the useful life of all those assets in this building for 25 years minimum. And we will not have to spend the money on those major systems moving forward after this project. So I want to make sure everybody understands that if the project didn't move forward for whatever reason, the municipality is still going to be dealing with these particular large ticket items for this building, but there will not be a 50-cent dollar or 40-cent dollar, depending on what the price of the tenders tells us when it comes back in. So that's kind of just a synopsis of the report. I expect that we will have the drawings shortly. My hope is that we hear from the provincial government and the federal government soon, so that we can get this on the market, and then we can get those numbers back to council. So I don't know if there's any questions, but if there is, I'm certainly available to try to answer those for council.
I
Thank
see
you.
that the mayor is back, so I will hand it over to him.
Okay. Firstly, thank you, Mary Gay, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, for taking the chair. When your internet goes off like a light switch, you know that there's a real problem. It wasn't fading, it's just gone. And despite my modest attempts trying to fix it, I'm at my office. Greg, thank you very much for your report. This is being presented to council for information. Are there any questions you'd like to direct through the chair to Greg? Yes, Councillor Scholdice, go ahead, followed by Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Cornerstone was originally to be paid $243,000, which reflected 9% of the total project cost. Now that the numbers that they've given us have doubled, does their profit double along with it?
Okay, I'll let Kristen or Jill or Greg chime in there. Just raise your hand if you'd like to speak to the question, administration.
Yeah, I can take a shot at it. I mean,
Sure.
I think Jill or Chris can jump in there too, but it will be 9% of the project cost. So
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I'm sure the rest of staff must have concurred with that. I see no issues. Any for Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. It's just a comment. I, for one, have had more than a few inquiries about exactly what we will be doing with the renovations at the arena. And I think other councillors have as well. So I think this is a perfect and a good report, Greg. It gives the public an idea of where we're going. And I think actually that it was Councillor McGill that might have asked for this report to come forward. I don't know if he has anything to say or comment, but.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor McGill, go ahead. I see your hand.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Yeah, I did ask for this report because I had people asking me, what are you planning to do there? And some of them wondered, why haven't we been consulted? But as you can see, it's mostly renovations to an aging building. It's not really something where the public could be asked, you know, what should we do here? What should we do there? But I think we have to get this information out to the public through our quarterly newsletter and through the Southwest Middlesex News, Southwest Middlesex What's New, on the website, on Facebook. We have to get this information out of what's going on. And actually, we also have to approve it in the budget, because as it stands now, we haven't really approved it in the budget yet, have we?
No, I'll let Jill or Kristen speak to that as well. It's certainly a fluid topic right now. It's moving, and until we get until we get any positive news back from the ministry, we have resubmitted this application. So at present, we have nothing going forward, and we're hoping we'll get some ministry feedback on this. Jill, any comments on that that you can assist the chair with?
That's correct, Mayor Mayhew. We submitted, I think I let council know that day that we had to send in a request to rescope the meeting, or not the meeting, the project description. And we haven't heard back yet. They did advise, we'd been in conversation with them. They did advise the process for that we have to send that in. They will then take that and review internally, send it up to the federal government for the federal government's concurrence, and then respond back. So we're waiting for that and send out reminders requesting that they provide us with that, in the hopes that if things can move ahead, that we can get the tender onto the market in early next year.
Thank you. Council, any further questions? Seeing none, this report is presented by Greg, has been provided to council for information purposes. May I have a motion to receive it for information? Councillor Cowell, seconded by Councillor McGill. Last call for questions. Seeing none, all in favor of the report being received? Carried. Greg, if you'd like to introduce us to the bridges and culvert inspection and regarding the appointment of Spreet.
yes, thank you, and through you to council. This is a capital project that is listed in the 2022 capital project list. As council is aware, we go through every 2 years the inspection of our bridges and culverts, which identifies any issues that we have with those particular facilities, infrastructure. And they do a fair bit of work in the field, which they break down the issues associated with them and actual costing, et cetera, to repair these particular problem areas that we would have from the inspections itself. Council did approve the inspection of all our bridges and culverts in Southwest Middlesex in 2021. That particular document is now complete, and I have received a priority listing today from Spreets with regards to how we would spend that $531,000. What are 4 or 5 priority areas that we would need to get done next year that are critical. I will say that there are a couple of those areas that are critical into getting this work completed. And Rob Cole has done a great job of sort of getting those particular areas and doing work on those areas just so that we could make it through the winter time here. I do have now that priority list. And that includes 3 large culverts and 1 bridge for the 2022 capital. And I would like to start that process. There is some field work that needs to be done. The final engineering needs to be done for these. And I would like to get these done as soon as possible in the new year. So what I'm asking council tonight is to appoint Spreet Associates as the project manager for these particular 4 projects that we need to get done. And that Spreet prepare designs for the priority projects and tender these projects, and that staff report back the results of the tendering process for each area. It will be a key to getting these, we're going to get some efficiencies if we tender them all as 4 projects together. And, a lot of this work is fairly large work with some road closures, et cetera, and we have to work through all that stuff. But I would really like this project to move forward. And I do have a recommendation on the table for council, and I'm certainly available to answer any questions with regards to these.
Thank you very much, Council. You have been apprised of the report. Are there any questions to Greg through the chair? Yes, Councillor Cal, followed by Councillor Vink.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we're appointing Spreets as project manager, and the Spreets prepare designs for the priority projects and the tenders of these projects, and the staff report back to council to inform them of the results of the tendering. I don't want to cut short any questions to Greg. You may have some inquiries. Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead. The motion is on the floor, but questions are allowed.
Thank you, Mayor Allen, to Greg. Isn't this usually a little bit backwards? Because usually we get a report on what the culverts are and what the bridges are. And so that we have some sort of indication what we're approving.
Greg, go ahead. Is that part of Spreet's process?
Yeah, and through you, Mary Ellen. Yeah, certainly it will be. I mean, these 4 particular areas identified in the inspection process that we've just gone through. And it is critical that we sort of start the process to get these projects done, but all these areas will be identified as part of the tender, and council will be well aware of these areas at that point.
Okay. Any other questions of council? Yes, follow up, Martin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. To Greg, well, we have so much in a budget. Do you think the budget will allow for these 4 projects?
And through you, Mayor Allen, it's a good question, Councillor Vink, because I did those numbers this afternoon. We would be well under the actual physical construction cost is pretty close to about $480,000. And we will have some project management fees associated with these, but we should be well within the budget of that we've set aside for 2022 priority projects for bridges and culverts.
Yep, it's just be glad we don't have any more, eh? Greg, yes, I tell you, some municipalities have thousands of them. Council, there's a last call for questions. Seeing none, the recommendation has been put before you, moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appears that we're on drainage now. Is Andrew with us? How are you, Andrew?
Yes, thank you.
Would you like to introduce the Wiley Drain to council, please?
Yes, sir. The Wiley Drain, the McMahon Branch 2. The background on this is that that the Wiley drain is a combination of an open ditch and enclosed pipe, and the McMahon Branch 2 is a pipe in itself. The last report that we have on file was from 1951. There has been other reports done on the Wiley drain, but nothing to this branch. And this is a standard reconstruction request, and that it is quite typical, given the age of this drain, that it is more than likely full of sediment or partly full, cracked for long stretches, and it is no longer serving the property owner's needs. So it is at this point that I would recommend that council accept the request filed under section 78 to reconstruct the McMahon branch of the Wiley drain. And given the fact that both of the properties that are assessed into this branch are owned by the same company, I believe that it is reasonable to skip the scoping meeting or the scoping notice, and that we go right to appointment of the engineer, and that we move on with this recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Council, any questions to Andrew? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of the section 78, please raise your hand. Motion is carried.
No, we need a seconder. And a
Seconder, I'm
motioner.
sorry. Yeah, I'm working on my phone here, guys. Seconder for that, Martin, you'll second that?
Oh,
Okay, thank you.
sorry, did we have a mover? I apologize.
A mover. I thought I saw Councillor Cal's hand up. Did I, Krista, interpret that? Okay.
I'll move
all right.
it. No problem.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Martin Vink. Last call for questions. All in favor? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Okay, that was the Wiley drain. And the next one is the McCann Nemeth drain, another section 78. Andrew, bear with me. I'm on my phone here. I brought my computer up here, but I've left my my itinerary at home. So I'm working off my phone on this agenda. So lead us into the discussion on the McCann Nemeth drain, I believe, section 78.
Yes, thank you again. The McCann Nemeth drain was constructed under a report from Spreet & Associates in 1987. The drain consists entirely of a 10-inch tile that starts at the west side of Haggerty Road, and it runs into an existing open natural water course, which eventually finds its way into the Thames River. There are no other reports that I know of that are on file for this report, or for this drain, sorry. The requester of this project has identified significant erosion occurring in the natural water course in this area. Given the natural water course is not a part of the municipal drain, the municipality doesn't have the authority to carry out any of the work. As a result, the owner of the property has submitted a section 78 request to legally extend the drain downstream approximately 100 meters. As a result, this extension would likely be contained within the property that has the current outlet of the enclosed drain. And we do know from past referee decisions that extending a drain downstream under section 78 is well within the confines of section 78 of the Drainage Act. So it is at this point that I would recommend that council accept the request filed under section 78 to extend the McCann Nemeth drain downstream, and that staff send out notices or having a scoping meeting with property owners in the watershed to determine the full scope if there are any further submissions, and that staff sends notice to the Lower Thames Conservation Authority and other authorities to ensure legal compliance.
Thank you, Andrew, very much. The chair will call for a mover and a seconder on this, and then we'll open it up to questions. Moved by Councillor Bartlett, seconded by Councillor Vink. Questions addressed to the chair, to Andrew? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion is carried. Andrew, there's a section 4 up next. Could you walk us through that?
Yes, sir. The background, the owner of Range 2N, Lot 18, and Range 1N of Lot 18, Augustine Walsh, has advised that his property on the north side of Trillium relies on a private tile that runs under the road through another one of his properties and outlets into a natural watercourse. Added to this, there is another property to the west that is connected into this private drain. It is likely that the county forest on the north side of the Trillium Road has surface water that runs towards this informal outlet. It is fairly standard for municipalities in the past to address drainage issues in the quickest and the most economical way possible. This was done with typically little concern for future issues or liabilities with that drain that is legally, it is private. And it is likely that there's an unofficial agreement in place between owners and the municipality in the past, but because it is unofficial, there's no record of it. So we do have the petition before us that has asked or that has petitioned the municipality to improve the existing private drain. And if you refer to the map that I've provided, the approximate placement has a catch basin on Trillium Drive, and it is near the point of the county forest. And there are multiple properties here that benefit from this drain. So it is at this point that I would recommend council accept the petition filed under section 4 of the owner or from the owner of Range 2N Lot 18, Range 1N Lot of 18, to incorporate the existing drain into a new municipal drain and reconstruct it, and that staff sends out notices or a scoping meeting with other property owners that benefit from the drain, and that staff contacts St. Clair Conservation Authority to ensure legal compliance.
Thank you, Andrew. Council, you've heard the section 4 request and the recommendation. The chair will ask for a mover and a seconder and then entertain questions. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Vink, seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Questions to council? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Andrew, the stocking drain, section 78, introduce this to council, please.
Thank you, sir. The stocking drain branch line number 2 was first constructed under engineer's report by Nesbitt Latham in 1979. There was another engineer's report on the stocking drain as recently as 1994. However, it doesn't appear that there's been any other reports done to this branch of the drain. The stocking drain has been cleaned out as recently as 2021 or earlier this year. This is another situation where the owner has asked for this to be reconstructed, similar to the past requests that we've received. It's at this point that I recommend that council accepts the request filed under section 78 of the Drainage Act to reconstruct the stocking drain branch line number 2, and that staff contacts St. Clair Region Conservation Authority to ensure legal compliance, and that staff sends out notices for a scoping meeting or a scoping notice depending on the COVID situation at the time, and that that staff reports back to council after these items have been completed.
Okay. Thank you. The stocking drain, section 78, a mover and a seconder, and we'll entertain questions. McGill, Councillor McGill, seconder, please. Councillor Scholdice, questions on this section 78? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Andrew, thank you very much. Andrew, I'm not sure whether you're going to stick with us or not, but that was a lengthy time. But if you happen to disappear, I want to wish you and your family a very happy holiday season and a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, you too.
We'll be here for a while. Jill, I've kind of got a small device in my hand. I think I've got this agenda in front of me, and notice of motion, there are none.
Correct?
Correspondence and petitions, I have not received any.
Correct.
Unfinished business, I don't believe there's any.
No.
And there was one item removed to new business on childcare. Councillor Cow, would you like to speak to that?
There is a plan to look at childcare costs all across Canada, and that there'll be a federal childcare program. And the first year looks at reducing costs by 50%, and then subsequent years look at having childcare at $10 a day. And I know that many of us are aware of the growing expense of sending children to appropriate care and the benefit and equalization of being able to send children to a licensed care facility. So Ontario is one of the few provinces that haven't signed off on this yet. And so this motion is just asking and encouraging them to support this along with the other provinces.
Okay, thank you. Would you be kind enough to make that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a seconder for that? I'm going to let Councillor Choi do that. Councillor Bartlett, you beat Councillor Choi, but I wanted to see her on the docket tonight, so I'm going to give her the privilege. Discussion, Council. All in favor of the endorsement, please raise your hand. Carried. Thank you very much. There's no other business. 13 on the agenda, Jill, is County Council Conference and Updates. I believe there's none. Council, any announcements? Perhaps I can break the ice. The Glencoe Agricultural Society is having a can drive and a food drive, and they'll take checks and money as well. On Saturday, it'll be led by the fire department, and I just want to advise everyone that we are graciously awaiting any donations of foodstuffs or personal health care products or money that we can get, and we'll certainly direct them to the appropriate places. And that's my announcement. Are there any others? Seeing none, we'll move on. There are no closed sessions, Jill. Nothing came in late.
No.
Okay, and we have bylaws. The recommendations are before you, Council. May I have a motion to recommend the bylaws as stipulated? And I'll get a seconder and I'll entertain questions after that. That the recommendation of the bylaws be accepted as presented. Councillor Scholdice, Councillor McGill. There are questions you'd like to address through the chair to administration? Seeing none, for the adoption of the bylaws, please raise your hand. Thank you. Carried. Council meetings are before you there. The January 12th special council meeting, the budget. We hope council give good consideration and go over the work we've done to date. And we hope we can wrap this up very soon. And please come back with some specific recommendations. If you have them, try to formulate them in advance. And we have the regular council meeting on the 12th, the January 26th special council meeting planning, and January 26th regular council meeting. Council, that brings us to the end of the agenda. I certainly will adjourn the meeting on the premise that everyone, yes, Mary Gay Wilkins, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew. Considering this is our last council meeting, and as has been done always in the past, we do submit our timesheets early so that it can go in for end of the year. Are you still looking for us to do that, Kristen?
Sure, that would be great.
Yep. Yep. Thank you, Mary Gay. Yep. I'm sure an email will be going out pertaining to that. Yep. We want staff to have a break as well. So that's a great suggestion, Council. Submit them as soon as you can. Council, I want to wish each and every one of you and your families a very Merry Christmas. We hope you have some downtime and we come back refreshed. The portion of the agenda that says future meetings is a great section of the agenda because it allows us to look forward to what's going to happen ahead of us and come back with fresh attitudes, fresh ideas, and we certainly hope that happens. But again, I extend my best wishes to you. And on behalf of all of council, I want to express to staff that we have those same wishes. We know the pressures you face, the amount of work you do, the benefit you bring upon Southwest Middlesex, and we certainly extend to you and your families a great holiday season and a Merry Christmas as well. And we hope everyone comes back well nourished and their batteries recharged. Good night.
Good night.